So good to see everybody. I know that we have the coveted final spot of the entire conference when everyone's hungry and wants to leave. I think they're going to try to bring more people in here, but we are going to do everything we can to try to keep this very interactive and exciting. And we know who our audience is here, so we're going to try to also really make it valuable for everyone who's here. So we'll do a quick round of introductions. I'm Amber Edwards. I'm the CEO of Sinclair Pharma. We don't have all of our products in the US yet, but keep an eye out because we will get them here. But we have a full suite of holistic aesthetic products with 2 biostimulators, 2 full HA filler lines, a whole range of energy-based devices, and many of those actually are in the US. So, but I've been in this industry for 25, more than that, years. Started at Allergan, like so many people in this room. So I love this meeting every year because it's truly it's like a high school reunion every time I come. So, and I'm so thrilled to have an esteemed panel of leaders here joining me today. I think we have a great mix of people representing some of the tried and true companies that have been around a long time, and then some very new cutting edge companies, as well as the legend, Dr. Jessica Wu, our provider today.
Thank you, Amber. And like you, I do feel like it's a reunion of sorts because I know so many faces in the audience. I'm Jessica Wu. I'm a cosmetic dermatologist in Beverly Hills in solo independent practice for 25 years. And I'm also on clinical faculty at USC, and I teach, yay, but I do also teach a business of medicine course for UCLA residents, and I'm on the advisory council for education at Harvard Medical School. I know a lot of you through my work as a KOL with Allergan and others, and also through clinical trials. More recently, I'm also CEO and founder of Residen. We're a health tech company that uses AI and automation integrated into physical spaces that we have built of 15 to 20 procedure rooms each, where aesthetic and other physicians can book rooms as needed with no long-term lease. And I want to take this opportunity to tell you that my home is evacuated, and I've spent the last couple of days trying to coordinate space for my physician colleagues whose offices have burned down. So I invite physicians in the audience and our industry partners, if you have reps, if you know doctors in the Los Angeles area who have been displaced, please contact me, DM me. We are happy to host them. And I'm very much looking forward to learning from my fellow panelists today.
Yeah. Thank you. That's, and do want to acknowledge, it's weird to be here on such a beautiful day and know what's happening just a couple of hours away. So thank you for sharing that.
I'm Irina Erenburg. I've been in the aesthetics industry again as a veteran for over 20 years now. I run a brand new medical device company in AVAVA is a company that I co-founded with some of my co-inventors in the technology world of Rox Anderson, Dieter Manstein, Henry Chen. And this is really a brainchild that started almost a decade ago out of the Blossom Innovations incubator in the Northeast. And the whole premise for us was to take all the learnings from the energy-based device world and retool and start from scratch and build a brand new category of energy-based devices going into the future, with our first one having just launched earlier last year.
Pasha.
Hi everyone, Pasha Sateri. I lead global marketing, product development, commercial assessments, and a couple other functions at Solta. And Amber, thanks for having me on today, and congratulations on all the success. They're very lucky to have you. We're very fortunate at Solta to have a great portfolio of products. We've been around 20 years, many of them the gold standard, many of your categories. Fraxel, Clear and Brilliant Touch, Thermage, and then on the surgical side, of course, we have Vaser. I've been with Solta a bit under a year, but I've been in medical devices and aesthetics a total of 20 years. Last 10 years of my time have all been in medical aesthetics, working in product development and portfolio strategy for Botox Cosmetic, the dermal fillers later on, as well as a couple other products in Allergan's portfolio. And we're very excited about what's going on at Solta and continuing the legacy going forward with it. So thanks again for having us on today.
And Rob.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rob Catlin. I'm the CEO at miraDry. I've been in the aesthetic industry for about 20 years. Amber Edwards gave me my first opportunity in 2006. We were both about 15 years old at the time, so we've come a long way. But as I mentioned, I'm the CEO of miraDry. We are the only FDA-cleared procedure for odor, sweat, and hair removal with permanent results. The product and company today is much different than the company at Miramar that launched 12 years ago. We've evolved considerably in terms of the patient comfort, the technology, and being powered by data. So it's a very different company. We are really a startup owned by 1315, but we're very excited. We have a global remit. We're in about 45 countries, and I'm coming off my first year as CEO. We had tremendous growth last year despite the macroeconomic headwinds. And I'm just joined by an absolutely wonderful team at miraDry.
All right, and that's near and dear to my heart. I was formerly on the board and know what a phenomenal technology it is. So I think we'll start actually, because you brought it up, Rob. We all know that 2024 was a very difficult year from a macroeconomic standpoint. And I think in particular, this space, the energy-based device space, really felt it because these are rather large purchases oftentimes that we're asking practices to make, and it can be a really difficult with financing and everything else facing us in the last year. So would love to hear a little bit about how companies weathered the storm. I know everyone faced it in different ways. Some companies really relied on consumable models for the most part, and more of the pull-through aspect. But maybe I'll start kind of where we finished off with you, Rob.
Sure. Well, it absolutely was a tough year. And as I mentioned, we have a global remit in 45 countries. And so it's nice to be able to arbitrage and hedge between regions. But at every point last year, there was political instability, currency fluctuations, and macroeconomic headwinds. But I think we really focused on what we do well, which is positioning and messaging and trying to attract that patient. We're powered by data. We understand the demographics that are getting our treatments. And 76% of patients who come to us are actually under 40 years old, and 66% are new to practice. And so we really focused on reaching out to them. Here in the US, we refer to them as Gen Well. A lot of companies target millennials and Gen Z, and we actually get them. So we really focused on trying to do outreach, working with our practice with geo-focused direct-to-consumer marketing, and then really practicing with the practices through our aesthetic business managers. But we certainly benefited by having our growth in Asia. That's been a very good market for us. About half of our revenue comes from Japan, China, Taiwan, the rest of APAC. But I'd say also we've been maniacally focused on cost. And I think that's between partnering with our practices, doing what we do well, and then being maniacally focused on cost, that really helped us in 2024.
Dr. Wu, I'm curious to hear how that impacted your patients with your practice from when it comes to treating with lasers and other types of energy-based devices. Did you really feel the impact of the economy on this area more so than others in aesthetics or across the board?
Interestingly, no. And I am often a contrarian, and I have two thoughts about that. One is that my practice, recognizing that being in Beverly Hills, we are a very unique population. So my numbers actually were quite a bit better this last year than previous years. So I'm very fortunate for that. And secondly, from a patient perspective, and this is not just my experience N of one, but actually from what our resident physicians have been telling us, that's dozens of them have been telling us, which is that they and their patients this past year moved away from filler, and their patients wanted a different alternative. So they were seeing the effects of GLP-1s. Mm-hmm. They were coming in, everybody comes in saying, what can you do that'll give me this? And that's where energy-based devices have their natural fit. So I actually saw an uptick in that.
Great. I love the contrarian perspective. It's always needed for sure. We have a lot that we're going to cover in our brief 25 minutes, so I'm going to hit on a few different topics. But if anybody wants to jump in, if I don't ask you specifically, please do. Let's keep it interactive. I want to talk about innovation because that is the core of our entire industry, and talk a little bit about what's kind of new and what's trending and what we're seeing in the industry. So I'm going to start with you, Irina, because I think that you have had an exciting launch in the last year, and maybe talk a little bit about what you see as innovation really in this space.
Yeah. I think that the energy-based device space has not had major innovation over the last decade, I would say. There have been really solid products, but there has not been a major launch of something that has been a breakthrough. And part of it is the challenge in doing the development in that space. It's a very complex space. It's an expensive one to start with. And as we know, the macroeconomic benchmarks don't lend themselves easily to building a completely new brand on something that is new. Having said that, I think that when you start from scratch, our view has been to bring things back to the basic sciences, the basics of the biology. And the way that AVAVA really pioneered its platform is to build a platform company, is to say, what do patients need? What do providers need? What does the market need? Where do we have lack of tools, and put the biology at the forefront. And that's really what led, after 8 years of development, the team to really advance focal point technology, which is for the first time the ability to create precision-focused energy delivery anywhere within the skin, and break past the barrier of how do you get the energy that you want deeply, where you would want to remodel the skin to give you the effect of the dermal fat interface, which is a lot of the compartment that you need to trigger for natural volume rebuild, the tightening effects that is part of your deeper layers of the skin, but at the same time, deliver safety, 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 allow users to easily do procedures, deal with pain, downtime. And when you put all of that together, you need to really rethink how energy is used. And that's been our focus, delivering energy at the depths that you need to get outcomes that are really unique. So our first product is really taking that category and building a brand new delivery platform for energy. Interestingly enough, before we started the company, we knew that lasers are intrinsically challenged in treating darker skin tones. And that's because of the sensitivity of the darker skin tones for PIH and other complications. And by being able to precision target energy anywhere within the depth of the skin, now we can avoid the unnecessary damage at the surface, and that allows us to actually treat all skin tones very safely without having to dial it down, without having to take the shortcuts or doing 10 procedures, which economically for patients does not work in the long term. So if you put the patients on biology first, you have to rewrite the space, and that's been our approach.
Great. Well, congratulations on bringing that. I know it's been a long time.
It's a long time, and innovation takes a long time to bring to market.
We all know what it's like when you finally get over that.
Exactly, exactly. And it's interesting, and I will hand this over because Dieter Manster, my co-founder right now, is doing a lot of talks on 20 years of fractional, right? Because that was the breakthrough innovation 20 years ago, fractional therapy. And I know that it's been one of the biggest successes, I think, in the field.
It's the tried and true. I think it's still a standard. So yeah. Great.
No, we've been very fortunate. I mean, to your point, we've got these fantastic brands that have a very long track record of demonstrated clinical experience. And I think part of our responsibility is to make sure that the innovation has to happen on the technology, but you also have to put out the proof of data behind it. So our providers have a very, very clear path on how to use these products to get really good outcomes. And that's going to be part of the next wave. We're working on a next generation fractional technology because we realize it's worked really, really well, and we don't want to lose that. And so the focus will be to take that innovation to the next level coming forward. I think when I think about the innovation as well, I think one of our challenges is going to be just as an industry as a whole, and this kind of goes back to my days even with Botox and the dermal fillers, is to really make it simple and easy to use for all of our providers. So they get reproducible outcomes. I mean, half of our battle is making sure the outcomes are great inside the practices. The other half of the battle is making sure that that's set up correctly for the providers, because if they don't have a positive experience with our products, and neither do their patients, and that means the likelihood of another patient coming back to the practice goes down. You know, Jessica, you're in a great practice. You, like many of the other providers here, I think are probably a smaller portion of the population out there. And so we've got to make sure that we can get really good reproducible results with our technology.
Still takes a lot of work though.
Yeah.
Even though I've been in practice, I've had literally patients, I just was looking at my database, I've had some patients literally for the entire 25 years. But still takes a lot of work, and that's where I think the opportunity both for docs in the office as well as industry is looking at energy-based devices. I think of them as a gateway drug. So you get them in because they say, look, doc, I want help with this, and you give them good results, and then you start stacking on other things that you offer. Like in my practice, a lot of blood testing. We talk about this as a conversation starter. I talk about my Aura Ring results. I send them for Prenuvo. We do Galleri, all of those things. So, and what we're seeing from our resident doctors is non-core physicians, ER docs, pain management folks, primary care folks wanting to get into energy-based devices. And I think, Pasha, exactly like you said, got to make it easy and reproducible for those non-core folks.
Yeah. You know, and I think innovation is just fantastic. You know, I think in this category as well, right? Because what it does is it creates opportunities for the conversation to be had, right? And that's what we need in aesthetics. We're constantly balanced between, you know, making sure we're still providing to the best clinical outcomes possible with great safety, but on the flip side of it is we need to create new opportunities to be able to go and talk to consumers about this. And Jessica, in your practice, and other practices as well. And I think as an industry, we learn something new every time there's something about innovation out there across all the technologies. So I think it's a great tailwind for the market whenever we have innovation.
Definitely.
May I play a contrarian as well, real quickly? And first of all, great comments by everyone. I do think in our industry, people mistake new versus innovation.
Correct.
And because of the regulatory barriers to get into the space, it's a lot easier to get new products. But true innovation is different, and I think AVAVA has done a great example of true innovation, even with Solta portfolio, gold standard. But there's a lot of players out there that just bring in new products that are just me too, me threes.
Yes.
And I really appreciate Dr. Wu, other dermatologists, plastic surgeons for being much more discerning in terms of the technologies they bring in. In technology, there can be innovative technology, but for our example, we've tried to focus on getting our procedure better. But moreover, innovation can come through technology, but also in how you service your customers and how you attract consumers. And we put a lot of effort into trying to reach these new consumers, these new Gen Well. They're consuming media differently than traditional audiences. And then again, like I said, how do we innovate in terms of reaching and supporting our customers? So it's a full 360, but it is different between innovation and new.
It's a great little handover to where I was about to go, which is about, you know, how we're defining innovation today, because there's so many, especially in this space, we have so many, there's technology, there's AI, there's data analytics, there's service models, which, you know, if you can be the best customer service provider in this space is huge. And you know, with our portfolio, we focus a lot on how do we holistically think about the consumer. I love what you said, because we're thinking, you know, Primalace is our laser hair removal. And it's fantastic, and it's how we get that super young, that early, and it's a gateway. It's a gateway because it becomes now an opening for so many other types of treatments, you know, and then everything you guys have said. But I'm really curious to hear the thoughts on how you define innovation. Rob, you mentioned where do data analytics and AI and all of that fit into this?
Well, I can speak for us, obviously. The thing I'm most excited about is the amount of data we capture and the data we observe and upload through smart technology. So we're observing virtually everyone that's coming in. It's blinded in terms of patient identifiable information. Excuse me, easy for me to say. But we capture that data, the demographics. We also capture what's happening in the treatment. We can take that back. We can review it. We can understand what treatment protocols work better, who's coming in, and use that information to inform future innovation. So that's what I'm really excited about. And we talk about AI, machine learning coming into space. These things need the data. So, you know, as we evolve as a space, taking that data, understanding it, capturing it, and then evolving from it.
Yeah, and I will say that I think that data is the future. I think that you have to build the technology intrinsically to be able to benefit from that. We have phenomenal practitioners in the field, but there's a pretty well known sense that energy-based devices are difficult to learn. It's not always obvious. There's technique dependencies. And so simplifying some of the optimized protocols based on realistic uses and the best practices of uses is really important. We've focused extensively on, because we were building technology from the ground up, our system has more sensors in it than probably any device I have ever seen. It makes it very complex when you're building it, and it means that you have to tune it properly. But things like being able to remote diagnostically see and service every aspect of the device, being able to do predictive service so that you minimize the downtime if a device needs to be really serviced in the field. But from the data standpoint of patient use, how do you take the best practitioners, simplify those protocols, and then release it as the best practices that become an expansion of that market? Because it is important to recognize single pair of hands does not make a profitable product in a practice. You have to be able to delegate and do it safely. And the value of a customer and of the value of a patient is to expand, have the patient satisfaction be such that after they do their facial procedure, they want to do their neck, they want to do their hands, they want to do their arms. And in the world of GLP-1, being able to treat the skin holistically for all of the needs of that patient is very important. And taking safety, and patient experience into the forefront is really critical.
Yeah. So innovation can mean a lot of things, I think.
Absolutely.
You think about it in so many ways. And I think that should give everyone in the company side as well some relief, knowing it doesn't always have to be about launching a brand new product. It can really be looking at what you already have and thinking about, how do we service this better? How do we add some kind of component to it that's going to, or even just from how we're talking to customers. And there's so many ways to look at this. So I'd love to hear, Jessica, what are providers being asked when it comes to, you mentioned, of course, this.
Yes, I see that
That's
all
the
day
universal.
long. Every day,
but,
all day long.
do you have people coming in saying, I want this specific laser? Do they know that much? Or what kind of questions are you getting?
Yes, both. So I get a lot of patients. Most of my patients have my personal cell number, and so they text me, they DM me TikTok videos, and they say, what do you think? When are you getting it? Should I get it? So I get that all day long, and I have to have that conversation with them, as you were saying, that Rob was saying that new does not necessarily mean better or innovative than what we already have. What I'm hearing from patients, what they want when they come in for a either laser or EBD treatment is, number one, is it going to work? And number two, does it hurt?
Yeah.
And those are the questions. The cost is much further down. So if it's going to work and it doesn't hurt that much, then whatever it costs, I will get it. I'll talk to Patient Fi and get it financed. But I think where companies can do better, and I would love companies to do better, and what I challenge companies to do is to make results more reproducible, better, and safer, like you were saying, Irina. And I think AI may be a way to do that, because every single cosmetic dermatologist practitioner I know has a graveyard or museum of overpriced doorstops that they've purchased over the years. And I luckily only have one or two. I have colleagues who have 6 or 8 of them, and you can just multiply the cost of that. And so what I'm doing is, in my own practice and those of our physicians at Residen that I coach, is we're looking at how to prehabilitate skin with diet, nutraceuticals, lifestyle modifications. We do blood work to look at their vitamin A, D, E levels, zinc, magnesium. All of these are essential for collagen building. So why is it that patient A gets a fantastic result with an EBD and patient B gets, I don't see anything, doctor. I spent $3,000, I don't see anything. So we're looking at that. I would love AI to help us with that. I would love our industry partners to help me give my patient better results, because I think the technology is there. We have fantastic technology with all of your technologies, but how do we guarantee, to the extent that we can, best results for patients?
That's a fair and big challenge. I think we could all take on. speaking of patients, and you've mentioned again sort of this holistic, all the different things you're doing in wellness, I'd love to hear where you all think, and anybody can answer this, the direction of our, specifically in EBD, where we're going when it comes to the types of indications we might be pursuing. I'm a big believer that aesthetics is moving, and there's a true intersection happening right now of aesthetics, longevity, wellness, women's healthcare. So where do you believe, and from your perspectives, where is this going? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if there's a technology base in aesthetics that is positioned to do that, it's really energy-based devices. I mean, just based on the mechanism of action of the products and the ability of the providers to be able to, if they choose so, tailor the treatment to each patient. Most of the time what you're getting is an enhancement of the current biology of the skin or the patient's desired outcomes versus like some type of altering experience. And I think that, I think that would be successful in that way. I still think one of the things that we're challenged with in order to be able to get to that is actually the demand coming into the practices. And then consumers viewing medical aesthetics procedures as a part of wellness and their holistic routine. I think once they're in the practice, like Jessica, you were talking about some of the things you do, then I think you've got the great technologies, you've got great data to be able to make decisions about what's right for patients. I think they have to come in and they have to be there in the practice. Greg Buford talked about this during yesterday's panel about, all of the dollars we're spending on top of what's going to be happening with wellness and everything is going to continue to grow, but the challenge is getting these patients in the practice and getting them and putting the proof out there that this is a part of a holistic wellness routine.
But I do also think that in that context, there is a major shift that is happening, and we're seeing it across the spectrum. We're starting to see a lot more demand for tightening procedures because of the skin laxity, crepiness. I'm shocked at the level of interest of doing necks, where it used to be just faces, and now necks are a huge focus. I think even higher demand, because our amazing derms and plastics have done a great job in managing faces. But now as you go down the body, being able to deliver high quality skin outcomes on thicker skin and on thinner skin is really important. I also think, to your point, pain is a major restraint. And I think that when you put that, if you actually look at the technologies that are out there that do address deeper layers of the skin, you find for the most part that they hurt a lot. And so that does restrain many of the practitioners. It's one of the reasons we spent probably 2 years just changing how you cool the skin and how you deal with pain, and understanding where the pain sensors are and understanding how do you manage that. Because what we are seeing is when you solve that, patients don't mind coming back. When they don't walk out looking super red, if there is a really good outcome, they actually want to come back. And then that is what's driving intra-patient expansion and higher utilization rates.
I'm very excited about the wellness boom that's coming through. People are making more informed decisions about their own healthcare, and I think that's a positive thing. They're certainly more informed, educated. As I mentioned before, with miraDry, our North Star patient is that 20, 30-year-old patient who's seeking excessive sweating issues. But our biggest growing segment behind that are women who are going through perimenopause and menopausal symptoms. And I think having an option to treat changes in biochemistry and odors and sweat, I think it's a wonderful option that we can provide and partner with our customers. So we'll continue to educate about treatment options and ways to treat these conditions, but I think it's a very bright future for the entire industry.
I'll add one thing as well. I think there are certain parts of the world where this is already happening,
yes.
Right? So I think we're having the conversation here because North America, for the most part, has been one of the largest aesthetic markets in the world. With Solta, we've got a full global footprint. We've got established infrastructure in every market and have the luxury of seeing what's happening. For example, I think, Rob, you mentioned like Asia, for example. We see thermage turning into, at a very young age for consumers out there because as a normal part of their routine. They're coming in on a regular basis and getting treatment once a year. And I think they look at skin tightening in this case,
Yes.
and then overall skin wellness very differently than most markets. So they do view the outside looking quality of your skin as a reflection of your inside. And I think that was one of the key themes that came up during the panel yesterday.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great feat, and it's so interesting working from a global perspective. I spend most of my time abroad now, and to see the different age groups and the different approaches that they take. And we're running out of time quickly, but I really want to talk about the opportunity around partnerships in this space. I think both in my previous company and with Sinclair, partnering with other companies, there's several even in this room who we partner with, has been a game changer. So where do you guys see some untapped opportunities with partnerships, whether it's with some of the regenerative medicine companies that are out there, the technology companies? Curious if anyone is involved in any of that right now.
We feel pretty fortunate at Solta. We do organic R&D development, and so part of our responsibility is also looking at what we can build inside versus in partnership with somebody else. I think our view is if we're going to go outside, for example, like yesterday in the panel as well, this came up about using exosomes in combination with products and things like that. I think one of the things we have to ask ourselves, I ask myself on a regular basis as well, is does that add an incremental clinical value to the consumer? And can we then demonstrate safe, effective outcomes? Because then Jessica's going to need to go out and talk about it with her patients, and she has the credibility. Obviously, she's a physician, a very well-trained physician. When you take a step outside that type of a practice, most of us do sell to most of the aesthetic providers in the market, and so we need to make sure that we can go out there and say, look, this is in combination with, we think it's actually going to enhance above where we're at today with our current products, but give you the right data to be able to make the right decisions.
I actually think that we're in a major shift right now because combination modalities, I think everybody now understands that energy-based devices don't live by themselves, right? They live in the world where you are using topicals to prepare the skin or to post-treat the skin, and that can boost an outcome. But understanding the biology and understanding what you're trying to achieve and who's the patient in front of you. Because if you have a patient with melasma, for instance, and you're treating them with an energy-based device, you need to be thinking about how you're going to treat them immediately post. And if they live in Texas or they live in Florida, you have a demographic that is very prone to conditions, you need to be thinking holistically. So I do believe partnership is important, and doing it smartly, because there's some phenomenal products out there and there's some great innovation that has really come through in that field. It's no longer just the retinoids that are driving that segment. And the exosome market, I think, is complex and growing and changing, and I think it's part of regenerative medicine. It's part of that combination of how do you stimulate that skin and how do you get it to continue to evolve in the best outcome for the patient.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think from a theme earlier, I think what we do with the data we have and how we're evolving it, I think that'll be big for us. But from a miraDry perspective, as I mentioned, 66% of our patients who get our procedure are aesthetic naive. And we are looking to partner with folks because 50% of them are interested in getting a neuromodulator, being educated about it. So we're open for business.
Yeah.
Jessica?
I travel to Asia at least twice a year, and so I have been doing polynucleotides for quite some time, and I don't talk about it publicly for obvious reasons, but I do have quite a bit of experience and have known Dr. Chan for years, actually, in Hong Kong and others. And what I see there, what my colleagues are doing, as I'm sure you know, Irina, is that they are doing at the same visit, they're doing laser and RF and toning, and there's a dermo-electroporation device that a lot of them are using after every single treatment. And so I do feel like with the products we have in the US right now, we are limited. And Amber, I can't wait till Sinclair's products are available. I can't wait to get my hands on those. I think the opportunity is in both vertical integration in my practice as far as I can provide products, injectables, skincare, nutraceuticals, all of those things, but also partnerships between companies. Like Pasha, I would love to see you guys have a Solta Skinny Shot GLP followed by a Solta Skinny Tighten Thermage. I mean, that would be an easy bundle I could sell to my patients. But something like that, using what we already have.
Yep.
Again, innovation is not necessarily just something that's new, but maybe different ways of thinking about it.
I love that. I think that's a great place to end with that request. Thank you again to all the panelists here. I think it's a really interesting, different perspective that you each bring, coming from different spaces and different types of companies. I think overall, our job is to make sure that we are providing safe treatments. And the only thing I want to continue to ask all companies to do is make sure that we are really doing the clinical work to make sure that we have the data to provide to our providers to support it. So thank you all for joining me on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.